Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose. Thank you so much for tuning in to join us for another great edition today. We are so happy to join you in your home and to bring you Sarah Raybon. She's the Director of Outreach for Arizona School Choice Trust. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. I know that the Arizona School Choice Trust does a lot of great work here in our valley, and so thank you for taking time to be here and sharing with our viewing audience a little bit about education. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind sharing about yourself, the organization, and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Sarah Raybon. I'm the Director of Outreach. We provide scholarships to children statewide who would like to attend private schools. We help families find options as far as schools, scholarships, etc. I work for Arizona School Choice Trust, which is one of the many school tuition organizations here in Arizona.
That is wonderful. So do you directly work with students, or are you involved in lobbying or anything of that down at the legislature? What do you do?
My entire focus is on the families, on the children, on the parents, on the schools. Right now we have about 1,700 kiddos getting ready to start school on scholarship, and that's about 120 schools statewide. So that is my focus. I help them through the application process. I help them find schools if they need help finding schools. I do a lot of education as far as telling people what their options are. A lot of families here in Arizona don't know we are a wonderful state to be in as far as educational options for families.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being here. And for all of you watching at home, today we are discussing education, and our first topic is education, as I can't even say the word, education options for Arizona families. This is something that whenever it's an election year, whenever it's time for someone to get elected to something, you hear this word school choice just thrown out there so easily now. And I think that a lot of people, whenever you actually ask them what is school choice, they don't know what it is. So to start with that, what is school choice and how is it implemented, especially here in our state?
Okay, well, school choice, I don't think it should be a partisan issue at all. I think it should be, everybody should be in favor of school choice. It just means that a parent being able to choose the best education option for their child, for their family, whatever that means. If it means public school, we have open enrollment here in Arizona. A lot of families don't know that. So in a public school, if there's another public school you would like your child to attend and there's an open seat, you're able to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter your zip code or your address. We have wonderful charter schools, excellent charter schools, and those are also considered public schools. We have the private choice program. So if those options are not working out for your child, you can apply for a scholarship to help you achieve that education you want for your child, no matter where it is.
And that's any grade from K through 12?
Kindergarten through 12th grade, and preschool in some cases, children with special needs. So if a child has an IEP from a public school system and they need extra assistance, we can help them as well. So they would also qualify for scholarships.
Okay, and so that's something that, how long has this been happening though here in Arizona roughly?
Mid-90s. So I would say 1997 is when the actual scholarship program started.
Okay.
And in the beginning is about 200 kids that took advantage of scholarships, and just last year it was over 50,000 students that took advantage of scholarships statewide.
Wow. And is that something that is implemented by only private organizations, or does the government have a hand in that as well as far as grants and scholarships?
Well, interesting that Arizona is pretty much at the forefront of a lot of these things.
Okay.
So individual school tuition organizations like I'm affiliated with, we give these scholarships by taking tax credit dollars. Okay. So everybody kind of has a hand in it. The taxpayer who gives, and then we give scholarships. Now also there's a brand new program. It's called the Empowerment Scholarship Account, ESA, and that actually is it takes us completely out of it, the STOs. It allows the parent and the State Department of Education, they basically sign a contract, and the state will give the parent the money, and the parent will then take that money and go educate their child as they see fit. They can even homeschool. Wow. That is very new. It's kind of almost like a health savings account. The state saves money because they're going to give you 90% of what they would be spending on your child, and you can take that money, homeschool, private school tuition, therapies, a lot of special needs families take advantage of that, and it's just changing lives. That's been about the last 2-3 years.
Arizona kind of been on the forefront all along in homeschooling, correct? We've signed a lot of legislations here that made it a lot more accessible for children and made it a lot more acceptable for children to be homeschooled. Can you tell us just a little bit about the homeschooling and how that is an option here?
Well, now as far as the homeschool laws, I'm not as familiar with the homeschool laws, but I do know that we are we have very liberal laws when it comes to parents choosing to educate their children in the home. And with these new ESA programs, it allows parents who didn't think they could afford to homeschool, where income was an issue, they can really curriculum, I mean everything. It would be a one-stop shop. The state would deposit that money in their prepaid debit card, just like a health savings account, and they don't have to answer to any, they don't have to turn in any curriculum or anything. They don't have to have anything approved. It's really just the ultimate in parental choice.
And then charter schools, that's one thing that there's a lot of here.
A lot.
There's a lot of charter schools. Can you explain for parents that maybe don't know what a charter school is, what is a charter school and how does it differ from a regular public school?
So it's interesting. So in about the mid-90s, charter schools were formed as kind of an alternative. So it was kind of a, we can do it better. Let us try to do it better for cheaper. So they're not beholden to a giant district. So whereas our traditional public schools have a big district bureaucracy, a lot of that, the charter schools have more of a small board of directors maybe. There might be some that are for profit. I don't think so. I don't know if we have any of those in Arizona, but it's kind of a different model. So you'll have specialty charter schools, maybe in the arts and music, arena, or maybe STEM education and science and technology. So you're going to have more specialized schools. You'll have schools for the gifted and talented, and even schools, they're starting to start charter schools for children with autism. So they don't really answer to a school district. However, they are still public schools. They still do have to follow through with some of the rules and regulations as far as testing their children or their students, accountability a little bit for the finances, but they get less money than a traditional public school student does. So I think it's about $1,500 less. So your charter school child is not getting as much per child as a public school child, a traditional public school child.
Okay, very interesting. And so parents that have children with special needs, or maybe if there's children in the foster care system, first of all, for foster children, there are availability and there's room for them to have school choice as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is a passion of mine, especially the children with special needs and those kids in the foster home community. So, like we just had a parent last year that called, a new foster mom, got a foster daughter, 10 years old, Amaya, and she really wanted Amaya to be able to go to this small neighborhood Christian school and didn't know how she was going to be able to pay for that. So there are special scholarships available for children that are currently in foster care and have ever been in foster care, so they can have been adopted, and that provides 90%, so we're allowed to give 90% of state funding in a private school scholarship. So she was able to put Amaya in the small Christian school near their home, and this is now her second year there, and she's doing so well. I mean, in her 10 short years, she's been bounced around to so many different homes that it's the least we can do is to do what's best for her and try to give her the best education we can. So
that is wonderful. And one thing that you had mentioned is if there's seats left. So the way that it works is schools typically would have a certain amount of seats for the children in their district. So if a parent wanted to try to get their child in a better school, if a parent was like, you know what, we don't live in a good school district, we don't live in a good area, how does that process even begin? I'm sure it's much more entailed than something that we could go over detail by detail here, but what are kind of some of the steps to go into motion? Because I'm sure there's lots of parents or grandparents watching and they don't even know where to start, because again, it's something you hear, school choice, school choice, school choice, but it's one of those things where sometimes there's so much information, there's too much information.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what are some of the steps to kind of get the ball rolling for a family if someone's watching and is wondering, what do I do?
Okay, well, I would say the first step is educate yourself. There are so many different programs out there. Find what you qualify for. So like you say, in the case of just mom, dad, grandma, grandpa says we want to go to a better public school, for example. Do you know of a public school you'd like to go to? If not, there are websites available that can help you find a school. If you know of the school, contact that school and ask when your open enrollment period is. It's usually the first part of the year, and that would be for the upcoming school year.
Okay.
And you fill out a one form saying, you know, you'd like to come to this school, and they'll let you know. So if there's a spot available, you get it. And that's kind of how it works in that arena for open enrollment. And charter schools also, if you have a charter school that you'd like to attend, they will have an enrollment period, registration period. You put your name on the list. As far as the scholarships go, if there's a private school you're interested in, most of the applications start around January, February, springtime.
For that
fall school.
Okay.
So the fall school year. So you would apply, and then just it's kind of a wait and see game, unfortunately. We had about 5,000 kids apply for scholarships for just our organization for the upcoming school year. So obviously we were able to give about 1,700 scholarships, so we still do have quite a waiting list. It's just, it's difficult as the population grows, as knowledge of these programs grow, the demand grows. So
what is kind of the deciding factor there? Is GPA taken into account, or family background, or anything like that, or is it just kind of a pool of people that are put together?
Now, I can't speak for all school tuition organizations, but I believe I would be very, very I would feel good saying that it's almost always first come, first served.
Okay.
We don't take report cards. I don't know of any that take that kind of thing into consideration, or family background or anything. It's usually first come, first served. Sometimes parents will submit, letters of circumstance, kind of explaining this is really why we're in desperate need. But for our program in particular, it's just first come, first served.
Okay, and is that kind of the way it works then with the open enrollment in public schools?
I believe so too, and I've taken advantage personally of open enrollment. I mean, I'm kind of the poster child of school choice in Arizona with my family.
Okay.
I have 5 children, and my oldest went to private school and charter school. And my daughter, Sophia, is now currently in a charter school.
Oh,
my son, Caleb, is in a private school. And then I have my youngest in a public school. I mean, it's just there's not a one-size-fits-all. It's what works for your child and that specific child, and whatever their specific needs are. So I like to say I've done everything but homeschooling, and I'm not sure I'm going to do that.
I was homeschooled, and I know that takes a very special amount of time.
I'm not sure about that. That's still something I haven't done. But it's just whatever works for that child. So that's kind of what I say. And if somebody needs help, they are more than, if there's questions about just school choice in general, I love taking calls like that. I love helping to educate parents and say, this is exactly what you can do.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And like you were saying, there's websites where you can kind of see different schools and what they specialize in and what they help. And thank you so much, Sarah. Such great information for our viewing audience. Again, if you're a family, if you're a grandparent, a parent, there's always choices out there, and there's wonderful organizations like this and so many that are willing to help you to get your children the best education and set them up for a great future. So thank you so much for watching, and please don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back after this short break.
I was feeling so alone.
I was going through a really difficult time.
I didn't want to bother anyone.
I didn't think they'd understand.
It was tough at first, but I did it.
I'm glad I asked for help.
I asked my teacher.
I asked my dad.
You can do this.
Whatever it is, ask for help.
If you're thinking about suicide or need support, call the Trevor Lifeline. Trained counselors are there to help 24/7.
Welcome back to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you just happen to be joining us, we are joined today by Sarah Raybon, and she's the Director of Outreach at Arizona School Choice Trust. Thank you so much for staying with us, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to have you. Wonderful information in that first segment. And for all of you at home watching, we are speaking about education. We just got done speaking about education options for Arizona families. And now we are going to speak about taxpayer benefits. This is something that is available to anyone and everyone, correct? Which is the best part.
Absolutely. Anybody who pays taxes in Arizona can take advantage. Anybody.
Wow. And so tell us, how does this benefit Arizona taxpayers? What are the benefits that we're speaking of here?
Well, so there are several different programs in Arizona, like we talked about, school choice programs, and they provide, and how we kind of provide the scholarships is based on the tax credit program.
Okay.
So taxpayers can contribute. Married tax filers for 2015, it's about a little over $2,100 they can contribute. Individuals about half of that, and that's what we use to provide the scholarships. So it's a dollar for dollar tax credit. It is not a deduction. So it's a win-win, definitely a win-win. I mean, it costs taxpayers nothing, but like we've heard, it can make a difference of the life of a child. I mean, it can make a real difference in the life of a child, especially a lot of the Arizona children that we're helping.
So by that you mean if someone donates $2,100 to someone, to an organization, to a school,
It has
to something?
to be to a school tuition organization.
Okay.
You're certified to accept the contributions, so there's about 50 of them in Arizona.
Okay.
They're school tuition organizations, STOs. They would give that. They would get a dollar for dollar tax credit off their state tax liability.
Okay.
And then we would use that money to provide the scholarship for the child.
So essentially, it's money that they would be paying in taxes anyway. So instead
Absolutely.
of giving it to the government to do with what they want to do with it, you're giving
Absolutely.
it to a child to have a better education.
Yes, yes. And you can participate. There's multiple tax credit programs in Arizona.
Okay.
So we have the public school extracurricular tax credit. A married couple can do $400 to that, and
Okay.
also at an individual $200. There's the tax credit for the working poor, and a lot of organizations qualify. St. Vincent de Paul, others like that. So you can do all of the tax credits. It's not one or the other. So a taxpayer can take advantage of all of those. And it's a savings to the state, which is the big thing. And right now with these budget times, it is a savings to the state. So I don't know if a lot of folks realize that between state taxpayer dollars and federal taxpayer dollars, the average public school student has about $9,000 kind of written on them. That's what the state is spending to educate
Per
that
student for a
particular
school
child.
year.
$9,000.
Wow.
So our average scholarship is only between $2,000 and $3,000. So a child coming out of the public school gets an average scholarship, a tax credit scholarship of less than $3,000. That's a big savings to the state.
Wow.
So it really is. I mean, it's a win for the taxpayer. It costs them nothing, and then a win for the child.
And so it's something that really anyone can take care of, so why not take the opportunity to find something that helps someone, and especially if you have a child or you have someone that needs it, or maybe you don't, maybe you have the opportunity to send your child to a private school, you could help someone else's child. And
the best part about that program in particular is most of the organizations will let you specify a school that you would like to support. So let's say somebody knows of a private school connected to their church, or another school they'd like to help, a school maybe for kids with special needs, that's where your heart is. You can specify and ask that your contribution be used to scholarship a child there. So, I mean, that's really a way that you can know that your tax dollars are being used for some good, and you can kind of know where they're going.
Is there anywhere in particular people can go to find out that information, or how do people find out how to go about doing that?
Well, the Arizona Department of Revenue
Okay.
has on their website, there's a spot that says tax credits, and you can look up all of the tax credits that are available to taxpayers in Arizona. So it will list the working poor tax credit. It will list all of the organizations that can take your tax dollars. So Arizona School Choice Trust is on there, as well as about over 50 others,
Yeah.
and you can kind of do your due diligence and kind of see what one best. Some of them are specific to faith. So let's say Catholic schools. So some of them help specifically Catholic schools or specifically Jewish schools. Most help any number of schools. So you would just kind of do a little research there. And again, I'm happy to take any calls or emails, people with questions about that.
So what are the options available then? You had mentioned a few of them. I mean, you have what are they, and how, so people can just give to any of them, and it's just very helpful. So what are all the options then?
So you would give. So the only thing you need to know is the organization you're giving to.
Okay.
So you would find, you would look up the organizations. You would, I'm happy to provide anybody with a list. So you would look at those organizations, find the one. You maybe look at their websites, just like you would give any charitable donation. And you would look at that and decide where you would like to direct your tax credit contribution. You get a receipt, and when it comes time to file your taxes, it's simple. We do TurboTax, and we do it every year. It's easy. We don't need an accountant. You can give up to your tax liability.
Okay. But it's just state tax, not federal tax.
It's not federal. It's only for your state tax liability.
Okay. Is there any credits that apply to federal taxes? Or
Some
no?
folks will say that you can use your credit as a deduction for your federal taxes. We always say consult your CPA.
Okay.
We don't give tax advice, but some folks I know do use their state tax credit for a federal deduction.
Okay, if they don't have that much of a liability to the states. Then...
Well, anybody who works in Arizona, and even those folks who are retired, usually you pay your state, even if you don't owe at the end of the year. That's, I think, what a lot of people get confused about, even if you're not writing a check. So April 15th comes and you get money back and you say, hooray, I don't have to write a check to you've paid all along, and they're just kind of giving you back a little bit. They took a little too much, so they're giving you a little back. So you've paid all along into the system. So just because you don't owe at the end of the year, you still can take advantage of this.
So then how would you go about doing that if
you would
didn't?
give. So, for example, a gentleman called me and he said, he doesn't owe, he's paid in all along, but he knows that he has paid $1,000 into the state.
Okay.
Well, he is able, as a single individual, to take that tax credit contribution. Even though he doesn't owe, he's still able to take that tax credit contribution. So it may seem for a time like you're giving twice almost. He's already paid, he doesn't owe, but he gave.
Okay.
He filed his taxes. He got a refund back of what he had paid into the state.
So that's why I said, okay, so that kind of differentiates, because I know that for people that might be confusing. That's why it's not a deduction, it's a credit.
It's a credit.
Whatever you pay into that to your liability, then they're going to send you a check
They're
back.
going to send it back. You're not going to have to pay it twice. So you send them proof that you've paid X dollars to the school tuition organization of your choice. They're going to send you the money back because you don't have to pay it 2 times.
That's wonderful. So does this benefit all children, and how many children are benefited from this?
Well, last year, over 50,000.
Wow.
And I think that represented like 350 schools statewide benefited from all of the tax credit programs. So, and any Arizona child qualifies. Like I said earlier, there are different requirements for each program. So, like for example, there's a corporate tax credit program. Corporations can give in Arizona to this program up to their entire state tax liability. So that's a wonderful option for a lot of companies in Arizona who want to support private education. So there were requirements though. Your family has to fall within certain income guidelines.
Okay.
So there are certain requirements for that one. There's the individual program, like we were talking about, individuals can give. And that does not really have any requirements. Your family doesn't have to fall into any income guidelines. It's up to each STO. It's up to us to kind of set our own guidelines. And we do have income requirements through our organization.
Okay.
And then there's, like we said, the specific program for children in foster care and with special needs. So all that's required there is that your child has been in foster care or is currently in foster care or has that IEP or 504, which is just a specialized plan that is given to special needs children in the public school. So, and that's the only requirement there. So there are some requirements for each program. So like where I said, just educate yourself on what you qualify for. But for taxpayers, they have made it virtually, mistake-free. I mean, you can just give, get your credit. It's as easy as that.
Okay. And do all children that have special needs get these qualifications in schools, or do parents have to go through a special process to make that happen?
Well, it depends. So sometimes it depends on what their need is. So for example, in the case of a child with autism, for example, if they start in the public school system, the parent might have to have some meetings with the special ed department at school, and basically they come up with a plan, and it's called the Individualized Education Plan, IEP, and that's just going to have your goals for your child, what the teachers are going to try to do to help your child and educate your child. So that is what will be given if your child has a special need that is
Okay.
recognized in the public school system here in Arizona. It's an IEP. Sometimes parents have to fight a little bit to kind of get that done. Other time, it really depends. Other times it really comes a lot easier. But that's that paperwork that will follow your child, and in a good way, because it allows them to take advantage of these opportunities.
Okay, so it gives them, like, if they were to apply for open enrollment, is that something that would kind of be included in that, or something for special
Yes,
education?
because any school you want your child to go to, you really need to make sure that they have the facilities and the capability to help your child. So you want to make sure they have the services that your child needs. A lot of private schools, sometimes don't have all the services. So especially a small private school wouldn't have the services to accommodate a child with severe special needs. But a lot of times those smaller learning differences, speech therapy, for example, hearing, things like that, a lot of private schools would love to be able to help your child, and you would use that IEP to get a scholarship to help you send your child there.
Okay, and I guess that's my last thing is with whenever you were speaking about scholarships and kind of the approval process, does that also have to do with, because do students, they have to be accepted into a lot of private schools, do they not?
Yes.
Okay, so there's kind of it's like you said, it's a waiting game because they have to be accepted and then they get granted the scholarship.
Yes. So when you're applying for schools, I always tell, a lot of my parents will apply to multiple schools and then kind of see what scholarships come in and then decide. So, and I think most private schools in Arizona are very willing to work with you and are very willing to do whatever they can, and will be honest with you. If your child might not be the best fit, if they don't have the services, in the case of some kiddos with special needs, they'll tell you where you should go. Okay. So I find that the private school community is very willing to help the families get to they want your child to succeed too.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like, in honesty, there's so many resources, so many things available to families. It's just taking a little bit of extra time to give your kid that opportunity to get a little bit of a more stepping stone and get a better step into their future. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here and for your help.
Thank you.
And again, if you have any questions, you're free to contact Sarah. I know she'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about this. But thank you so much, as always, for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you right here next week on Joy in Our Town.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and is made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town coming to your home every week. Write to Joy in Our Town, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.